All right, Yevamos, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's share. To thank our TALMUD Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar, Yona Shushie Ehrenfeld, for dedicating the shiurim this month in memory of their grandfather Yosef ben Shmuel Aron, Zichron Livracha, Benjamin and Elys Wohl of Netanya, Israel, for dedicating the shiurim this month in memory of Moshe Chaim ben Tzvi Hirsch, and our week of learning sponsors, Ari Hayley Lichterman L'iluy, nishmas, Haley's mother, Rochel Leah bas Reuven Meir. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD Torah, all of the neshamas will have an aliyah and the families a neshama. Now listen, with that, let us begin. I hope I was able to convey in my WhatsApp message last night just that this is a pretty good daf ahead of us. It took me a little while to wordsmith it, but I will say it is very exciting because the truth is, over the next couple of days, we have some really incredible sugyas, some really incredible pieces of Gemara, and some really incredible sugyas. So it's also an opportunity, if a chaver of yours is not yet here at Shir, I already sent a couple of text messages after davening, but if there's someone you know and you care about who's not here, it's kedai to reach out to them, to say, where are you? Where are you? We're about to have transformative, cathartically overwhelming Gemara. How can you miss it? It's not the same on the podcast, and it's not the same later on. At least the Chaver and Zoom are here together live. So it's a good opportunity. If you have something beautiful, you want to share it with your fellow Jews. So with that, let us begin. It's a really beautiful sugya and fascinating halacha l'maisa. We'll try to do it some level of justice, but I'm also going to give you some additional makomos to be able to look at on your own to enhance your appreciation and develop your understanding of this sugya. So today's daf is Samech Beis 62, and we are picking up on Samech Aleph Amud Beis at the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah as follows: Lo yivata adam epiri v'rivya, ela im ki yesh l'banim. What we're about to engage in is the sugya of piri v'rivya. There's a mitzvah of procreation. Again, what that mitzvah is, technically speaking, at what point does one fulfill that mitzvah? Those are the details we're going to get into right now. But this is the sugya of piri v'rivya, of having the mitzvah of having children. This is where this sugya appears in Shas. And about say, just to orient you, interestingly enough, these halachos are contained in Siman Aleph of Even HaEzer. And by the way, I would urge you we're going to go through a couple of halachas today, but it's kedai just to take a look in the Shulchan Aruch to read through it. It's actually not a complicated siman. It's a pretty straightforward siman. Siman Aleph, Even HaEzer, Hilchos Piri v'Rivya. And so much of what we're going to do today is going to be contained in those seifim. So the Mishnah says as follows: Lo yibata adam piri v'rivya ela im ken yesh lo banim. A person should not be mevatel. Should not. I will say, even here the lashon is interesting. A person should not negate the performance of piri v'rivya unless, of course, he has children. I will say, just again, there's so much to say here. This is also that one of my favorite sugyas because it brings me back. Sometimes you learn things, and there was a famous Maisa with Sigmund Freud, that there was a woman who came to Freud, and wherever she went, she smelled burning bread. And she could not, no matter what it was, she went to doctor, she thought it was an issue, she's always smelling burning bread. So she comes to Freud, and Freud psychoanalyzes her. And it turns out, to make a very, very long story much shorter, that she worked in a bakery, and her boyfriend, who she was, seeing for a very long time, who they had plans to marry, came to her at work and said to her, "We're breaking up. And she was so traumatized by all of this happening, she forgot she had bread in the oven, and ultimately, again, the bread burnt. So subconsciously, the smell of burnt bread was associated, was intertwined with this traumatic breakup for her. So wherever she went, she smelled burning bread. So lahavdil, the same is true in the positive as well. Sometimes you see things, or you learn things in life, and they take you back to such a good time. So I remember I did this. I learned this sugya with my chavrusa when we were in the Yad Kollel at YU. At Yeshiva University, and we did this sugya peri v'rivya, and we spent a long time on this sugya. So whenever I come to this, it always takes me back to a much simpler time in life, just sitting in yeshiva and learning and steiging. So a special appreciation for this. So I want to point out to you something very interesting, which again, beyond the scope of our shir today, but there is a whole discussion, what is the mitzvah of peri v'rivya? what is the mitzvah of Peru Revu? So I will say, the mitzvah can't be having children. Why can't it be having children? Because you don't have control over that. Right? I will say, so again, Lemaisa, the only time HaKadosh Baruch Hu could give me a mitzvah is if it's biyadi l'kaimo, if it's in my hand to fulfill it. So obviously, the mitzvah, everybody wants to have children. People want to have children. But some Maseches Tainis, there are gimel maftechos, there are 3 keys that are held by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of them is the maftech shachaya, the key of life. So I don't control if I have children. And therefore, again, the Minchasin already brings down the mitzvah pir v'rivya is not to have children. The mitzvah pir v'rivya is to try to have children. So to have a marriage, so this gets into the whole discussion, by the way, about whether or not marriage itself is a mitzvah. Is there a mitzvah to get married, or is marriage just the vehicle through which I could fulfill the mitzvah of pir v'rivya? Also another fascinating machlokes. But the mitzvah of peru or revu is to engage in marital intimacy to try to have children. That's why the Mishnah words this, and I will say, at what point in time has one, so when do you quote unquote fulfill the mitzvah? So you fulfill the mitzvah when you try, right? The husband and wife are together, that's a fulfillment of the mitzvah of Peru or Revu. At what point in time am I quote unquote exempted from further pursuing the mitzvah? So that's again when you have whatever it is, we'll see, whatever number of children it may be. So that's why the lashon of the Mishnah over here is lo yibatel adam mipirya v'rivya. A person should not stop trying to engage in the mitzvah pirya v'rivya ela imken yesh lo banim, unless he has sons. You have to have sons in order to fulfill the mitzvah. Beis Shammai says, and I will say, so banim is a generic term for children. Right? It doesn't mean sons, it means children. The shaila, of course, is, okay, so how many children, what gender of children do I need in order to go ahead and fulfill the mitzvah? Beis Shammai says, shnei zcharim, 2 sons, Beis Hillel omrim zachar nekeva, a boy and a girl. So we'll say fundamental machlokes, at what point in time have I quote unquote fulfilled the mitzvah per v'rivya? Beis Shammai, 2 boys, Beis Hillel, a boy and a girl. Shnei emar zachar unekeva bara'am. Because Beis Hillel, again, we'll get into their respective opinions, but Beis Hillel holds zachar unekeva bara'am. Hashem created them male and female. Adam and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, so to speak, first children, or a boy and a girl. So too one only fulfills the mitzvah peri v'rivya if one has a boy and a girl. Okay, we'll see. Says the Gemara, Hayesh lo banim peri v'rivya batal mi shelo batal. That was giving an interesting diak over here. It's only once a person has a certain number of children. First of all, we'll say the common denominator between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is number of children. Right, which is interesting. They both agree that the number is 2, right? The machlokes is the gender, right? So Beis Hillel, boy and girl, Beis Shammai, 2 boys. The Gemara makes an interesting diuk. Even after you have either 2 boys or a boy and a girl, that's when I fulfill the mitzvah of peri v'rivya. So I will say, so the lashon is mi peri v'rivya batal. You could stop trying to have children, but mi isha lo batal. But there is still a mitzvah to be married. There's still a mitzvah to be married. So after having a boy and a girl, after having 2 boys, I don't have to further pursue the mitzvah peri v'rivya. But lest you think that means you don't have to be married either. Not true. You still have to be married. So the Gemara says, we'll discuss why that is. The Gemara says, even if a person has many children, ultimately a person should not live without a wife. Right? A person ideally should try to be married. It is not good for a person to be alone. Shabbos, this is incredibly profound. Rabbi Soloveitchik has a beautiful essay about marriage, and he quotes this Gemara, and he says, you see from here that marriage really serves 2 purposes. There's an element of marriage for procreation, and there's an element of marriage for companionship. And what the Gemara is trying to highlight over here is, whereas procreation is important, companionship is incredibly important as well. See, when the procreative aspect of marriage is no longer needed, right, the companionship aspect of marriage is an absolute necessity according to the Gemara. I will say, the Gemara in the end of Amud Beis, I don't think we'll get to it today, but elaborates on this theme a little bit more. Others explain, Hayesh lo banim batal mi pirya v'rivya. I will say now there's an alternate version of this. The alternate version of this is, according based on the Mishnah, once you have children, you no longer have to fulfill the mitzvah perivya, ubatal nami meisha. And Abba say we would assume that if there's no mitzvah perivya, there's also no need to be married. Say that this is a refutation of Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, because Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel said a person should not live without a wife. So Amar Shmuel, so the Gemara says, Lo, ain't lo banim no si isha bas banim. No, what it means is like this. If a person doesn't have children, he's getting married, he has to make sure to try to marry a woman who's capable of having children. Yesh lo banim. What happens if a person already has children? No se isha dalav bas banim. But say if a person already has children, and let's say his wife with whom he had children, he's no longer married to, for whatever the circumstances, now he wants to get remarried. If you already have kids, you don't have to marry a woman who is capable of having children. So we're going to see that halacha, which is quite a fascinating one. Nafkamina, what's the nafkamina over here? Limkar sefer Torah b'shvil banim. Ultimately, this is fascinating. Are you permitted to go ahead and, let's say a person has a sefer Torah. A person wants to get married. They don't yet have children. They want to get married, but they don't have money to get married. The only item they have in possession is a sefer Torah. Are you allowed to sell your sefer Torah in order to get married? So the Gemara says something amazing. The Gemara says it depends. If a person is unmarried and also hasn't yet fulfilled the mitzvah perivya, then you could sell the sefer Torah in order to get married. But Lamais, if a person already has children, but he just wants to get married because of companionship, halacha Lamaisa, he cannot sell a sefer Torah. Look at Rashi, limkar sefer Torah, kadelisa bas banim, v'im yesh lo banim lo yimkar elayisa akara ozekena. So we'll say, halacha Lamaisa, if you're not married, you don't yet have children, you can sell a sefer Torah to facilitate the marriage. But if you already have children, you cannot sell the sefer Torah to get married. So what comes out of this Gemara is we paskin like this statement of Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. We'll see it again, like I said, probably more in tomorrow's daf, that there is this duality to marriage. There's the procreation aspect of marriage, and then there is the companionship aspect of marriage, right? There's the idea that a person gets married in order to facilitate the building of a family, but also like Rav Nachman says in the name of Shmuel, Lo tov hayosa adam levado. It is not good for a person to be alone. We'll expound on that in just a little bit. It's good for a person to have someone else with whom to share their life. It's good for a person to have someone else to also keep them on the proper path in life. There are these two aspects. By the way, it's also, I just want to point out, incredibly amazing that we're learning this Gemara on Mother's Day, right? I'm just saying, like, it's amazing. It's amazing. Someone once said that a man was telling me that he doesn't do anything for his wife on Mother's Day. He said, because she's not my mother. She's not my mother. And I said, okay, and how's that going for you, right? So I was like, I'll just point out to both say, so Lamaisa, it's so important that a husband does something for his wife on Mother's Day. Because I will say, I just want to point out, the fact that one's wife is a mother means that she enabled you to fulfill the mitzvah peru revu. The mitzvah peru rivya is not a woman's mitzvah. The mitzvah peru rivya is a man's mitzvah. So while it's true that your wife is not your mother, right? Although in Yevamos we've seen anything is possible, right? But Lamaisa, as much as but think about this, right? How much akaras atov that a husband has to have for his wife on Mother's Day as well. First of all, for being the mother of one's children is the ultimate accomplishment that a mother has. I mean, whatever other accomplishments in life she has are incredible, but the ability to be a mother, not just in a physiological sense, but the ability to have a direct hand in shaping the next generation is such an unbelievable and overwhelming zechus. A man has to recognize that identity and express appreciation. So, if you have not yet done anything for your wife for Mother's Day, right, you could leave Shir a few minutes early, like at 8:58, right, and do something. And it better be good. It better be good. Not Rite Aid card, where you just come in and forget to sign it and hand it over, right? It's got to be something of significance. Because again, a wife gives us the ability to fulfill the mitzvah, and also because ein zechus gedola mizo. But these are the two aspects of marriage, right? The idea of a companionship and a procreation. Incredible. Let's go right there. So we'll say, let's get into this Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Incredible. Beis Shammai omrim shnei zecharim. So we'll say, Beis Shammai says two sons, right? So machlokis. Beis Shammai says two boys. Beis Hillel says a boy and a girl. My time of the Beis Shammai. They will say, where does Beis Shammai get these two boys? Where does he get two boys? Yafilim Moshe. It's incredible. He learns that from Moshe Rabbeinu. Dichsev b'nei Moshe Gershom ve'Eliezer. The sons of Moshe Rabbeinu had two sons. Right now, we'll say, now, so what? Moshe Rabbeinu had two sons. The rest of this is Moshe Rabbeinu had two sons, and then remember, what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He separated from his wife. Now, B'Pashtos, Moshe would only have separated from his wife if what? If he knew that he had fulfilled the mitzvah of Piri Barivya, of going ahead and procreating. So therefore, for Moshe Rabbeinu, Beis Hillel says, Yalfina mibriyasa shalolam. It's incredible. Beis Hillel says, we learned it from the creation of the world. Hashem, so to speak, fulfilled or performed the first mitzvah Piri Barivya. Right? Hashem fulfilled the first mitzvah of procreation. How did he do it? A man and a woman. They will say, so therefore, our mitzvah Piri Barivya is also a boy and a girl. We'll say, isn't it absolutely incredible that according to Beis Hillel, we model our mitzvahs ultimately, again, after how the Ribono Shel Olam himself acted, which becomes a paradigm in our lives. The Gemara Masechah Sota says, V'halachta b'drachav. You have to walk in the ways of Hashem. So the Gemara says, how can you walk in the ways of Hashem? Halo eish ochlo. Kadosh Baruch Hu is an all-consuming fire. So the Gemara explains what it means is emulation of the divine attributes. We look at what Hashem does and how Hashem behaves, and we emulate those very behaviors. And Abba says, you see this in a halachic sense as well. Beis Hillel says, how do I perform the mitzvah Piri Barivya? Well, let me look at what Hashem did. Let me look at what Hashem did. And what did Hashem do? Boy and a girl, man and a woman. So too, my mitzvah Piri Barivya is also a boy and a girl. Why doesn't Beis Shammai agree with Beis Hillel? Learn out the mitzvah Piri Barivya from the creation of the world. To which Beis Shammai says very simple. Ein donin efshar, top of Samach Beis, mishe'i efshar. Rabbi say this is incredible. You can't learn out something that is possible for something that is impossible. As Rabbi say, when the Ribbono Shel Olam created the first people, he had to create a man and woman. Why? Why? Because there was no other way for the world to move forward. So you can't say, but now, again, it could very well be that our mitzvah Piri Barivya is fundamentally different than the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed it. Beis Hillel nami lilful mi Moshe. So Rabbi says, this is incredible sugya. Beis Hillel, why don't you learn like Beis Shammai and say that the mitzvah is two boys, modeled after who? Modeled after who? Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's listen to this, because Beis Hillel will say, Samech Beis Amud Aleph, second line down, Amri Lacha, Moshe Midaytehu Da'avid. Wow. I will say, Moshe Rabbeinu acted of his own volition. When Moshe Rabbeinu separated from his wife, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not tell him to do that. He did that on his own. Because he did it on his own, Beis Hillel says, you cannot learn binding future halacha based on what Moshe Rabbeinu did of his own volition. So I will say, here we go. Disanya. Now the Gemara is going to go on a little bit of a tangent to speak about this point. Disanya. We're learning a brayso. Get ready for this. I will say, Shlosha Dvarim Asa Moshe Midaito. Moshe Rabbeinu did three things of his own volition, right? And his schema, daito ladas hamakom. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed with it. And I was saying the lashon number is actually very interesting. The schema daito ladas hamakom means, and he was mechavin. So literally, his decision aligned with the divine decision. So Moshe Rabbeinu acted on his own three times, right? Acted of his own volition three times, and those three times, what he did actually was in alignment with the divine will. Here we go. Both say, what did he do? Piresh mina isha. So step number one is Moshe Rabbeinu went ahead and separated from his wife. Number two, shibras haluchos. He broke the luchos when he came down and he saw the egel, the golden calf. V'hosim yo echad. And it was he added on one additional day to the preparation days before Kabbalas HaTorah. Right? Again, we'll explain all of these in just a moment. So we'll say, Pirush Mina Isha. Let's go through each of these. So he separated from his wife Tzipora. Why? My darash. What did he darshan? So he said, Amar, Umay Yisrael Shalo Dibra Imam Shchina Ela Lefisha V'Kava Lahem Zman Amar Torah Al Tikshu El Isha. So Moshe Rabbeinu thought like this. He said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he told Klal Yisrael that he was going to appear by Matan Torah on Har Sinai, he gives the people instructions and he tells them, separate from your wives. Right? He wanted everybody to be ritually pure. Man becomes impure through a seminal emission. So in preparation for Kabbalas HaTorah, husbands and wives had to separate. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, Kadosh Baruch Hu told Klal Yisrael when he was arriving, right? When he was going to appear. And yet Klal Yisrael was still obligated to separate a few days before. Ani shemiyuchad ledibor b'choshav v'sharav lo kavalizman alachas kama v'kama. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could talk to me when? Could appear to me when? When? At any time. Therefore what? I must be in a constant state of preparedness. Therefore Moshe Rabbeinu decided, I can't live with my wife. As a normal husband lives with his wife, I have to separate from my wife so I could be in a constant state of preparedness. And it was the hand of the Kadosh Baruch Hu ultimately, that Moshe Rabbeinu, he was like mechavein, like Baruch Shekivanta. He was mechavein to that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted from him. Shene'emar lech amor lahem shuvu lachem la'alech. And we'll say after HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Aseres HaDibros, so what happens? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, tell the people to return back to their tents. The Rabbi say, Ohel is often a metaphor for a marital relationship. Tell the people now that they have received the Torah, they can go back to their wives. V'ata po amod imadi. But you, Moshe, you stay with me. You stay with me. So that, says the Gemara, is the raya that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was masking. HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed to Moshe Rabbeinu's behavior to separate from Tzipora. That's number one. Number two, Shibras Aluchos. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down from Har Sinai and he sees that the Jewish people built the Egel, they built a golden calf. So what does he do? He breaks the luchos, he breaks the tablets. So my darash, I will say that this is incredible. What did Moshe Rabbeinu darshan, right? How do you arrive at the decision to break the luchos? Watch this. Amar, Uma Pesach shu echa mishesh me'os u'shlosh esrei mitzvos, Amra Torah kol ben nechar lo yochal bo. So I'll say, listen to this. So the pasuk, we know there's one, Moshe Rabbeinu says, listen, there's one pasuk, right? What's the one pasuk? Karban Pesach. By Karban Pesach, the Torah says, kol ben nechar. Rabbi say, now what does ben nechar literally mean? A guy, right? A non-Jew, or for that matter, again, even someone who's not circumcised, is not permitted to go ahead and participate in Karban Pesach. Which Rabbi say means, if you are theologically alienated, you are not permitted to engage in Karban Pesach. So the Gemara says, so yocha haTorah kula v'Torah kula v'Yisra mumrim alachas kama v'kama. Now Moshe Rabbeinu sees, I'm about to give them the Torah. He's coming down with the luchos, and Klal Yisrael are mumrim. They're mumravos, right? They built the egel, they built the golden calf, which at least according to some was avodah zarah. They are theologically alienated. How can I possibly give them the Torah? So therefore Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos. He broke the luchos. V'eskima daitla das hamakom. And I will say ultimately again, how do you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed, or that Moshe Rabbeinu's das was in line with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's das? Dichsiv asher shibarta. The pasuk when Hashem's talking to Moshe Rabbeinu talks about the luchos asher shibarta v'amrei shlagish amrei HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe yasher kochacha sheshibarta. He gave him a shkoyach. Shkoyach that you broke the luchos. Now I'm both saying, this is a fascinating Gemara, because if you take a look at Tosas for just a moment, Tosas says haTorah kula v'Yisrael mumrim. Ein ze kal v'chomer gomer. Both said it's pretty wild. Tosa says, Moshe, I think your kal v'chomer is not good. Right? Why isn't your kal v'chomer good? Watch. So remember again, what was Moshe Rabbeinu's kal v'chomer? If by Karban Pesach, which is one mitzvah, the Torah says if you're theologically alienated, you can't participate in it, I'm about to give them the Torah. And they are mumrim, right? They are mumrim, right? They're engaged in avodah zarah. Of course I can't give them the Torah. Tosa says, nah, doesn't work. I'll tell you why. The shiny Pesach mishum kachim. Pesach is different because Pesach is sacrificial items. It's great kachim. Aval kol Torah kula adarabba. Yesh lo lelamdam ulachzirim b'tshuva. I will say, who needs Torah most? Who needs Torah most? Tzaddikim don't need Torah most. You know who needs Torah most? Mumrim. Mumrim. All the more so you should have given them Torah. All the more so you should have given them Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu. If they're mumrim and they're acting in such a ridiculous way, if they're so theologically and spiritually alienated, who needs Torah more than that? Okay, so Tosa says Moshe Rabbeinu's kal v'chomer is not a kal v'chomer. I'll add in one more. The Apter of the Oav Yisrael, the Rebbe of Heschel in Chanukah Satorah, he says, by the way, Moshe Rabbeinu also, your kal v'chomer is not good. Why does your kal v'chomer is not good, Rabbi say? Because if you want to build a kal v'chomer from if you want to build a Kal V'chomer, ultimately, again, from Pesach, there's a pircha on the Kal V'chomer, says the Rebbe Reb Heschel, the after of. Why? What's the Kal V'chomer? Pesach has Pesach Sheni, right? There's a makeup date. You're right. A Ben Nechar can't go ahead and participate in the Pesach Rishon. Or if you thought you can't participate in Pesach Rishon, because there's a makeup date. Moshe Chaim doesn't give you the license to go ahead and break the luchos. Shabbos say you now have Tosas and the after of, who both say that the Kal V'chomer of Moshe Rabbeinu is not good. Okay, so what do? So I will say there's another medrash. And the medrash brings down that when Moshe Rabbeinu came down, first there's the Gemara, right? The Gemara Meseches Megillah, we saw Megillah, right? I will say Meseches Megillah brings down that in the luchos, the osios were parchos. There was a miracle in the tablets that the letters were suspended, right? The letters were engraved, but like, for example, the samech, right, which is a circle, right? There was like a piece of stone suspended there in the middle. The Medrash brings down that when Moshe Rabbeinu came down and saw that they had built the Egel, osios parchos, the letters left the luchos. So it could very well be that the moment that Moshe Rabbeinu saw that the letters left the luchos, there was no big deal in smashing the tablets, the luchos. Why? Because at that point in time, they were just what? They were just stone. So maybe that's the pshat, maybe that's the idea over here, that Moshe was able to smash it because they were just stone. Well, so there is one more piece. The Satmar of says something so beautiful. There's one more Gemara section that we have to go on. Stop forcing me to talk more about these things. Right? So again, there's one more piece. In the Gemara Masechet Shabbos, says that Moshe Rabbeinu made a calculated decision to go ahead and break the luchos. Why? He says the luchos were like the ksuva. They were like the marriage contract between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu saw this act of the egel as an act of adultery. He said, better to go ahead and smash the ksuva. So at least, if they're going ahead and committing adultery, let's do it before the marriage happens. He smashed the marriage contract between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, thereby diminishing the severity of the sin of the egel. Satmar Rav says something amazing. Why does Moshe Rabbeinu get a shkoyach? Listen to this. He gets a shkoyach for the Mesiras Nefesh. Rabbi said, do you realize the chutzpah that it took to smash the luchos? Can you imagine? Again, it's unimaginable. Don't try this at home. Right? Don't try anything like this at home. Moshe Rabbeinu was walking down with the luchos that were written by God. He sees the people building a golden calf, and he decides unilaterally to smash the luchos. Who gives you the right? Who do you think I got it, your Moshe Rabbeinu? This is God's handiwork. What right do you have to smash it? Moshe Rabbeinu decided, whatever my punishment is, my punishment will be. But I'm going to do whatever I can to diminish the severity of the infraction of my people. I'm going to do whatever I can to go ahead and try to save Klal Yisrael. And says the Satmar Rav, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was Moser Nefesh, put his own life on line, because Moshe Rabbeinu did not know what the punishment for smashing the luchos was going to be, but he was willing to take one for the team, no matter what it was. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that level of Mesiras Nefesh for Klal Yisrael, that level of self-sacrifice, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Asher Shibarta, Yasher Koach Shesh Shibarta. Because it was when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that we are Moser Nefesh, that we're willing to sacrifice, that we're willing to give, that we're willing to put ourselves out there for the benefit of our kehila, of our community, of our klal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the biggest shkoyach in the world. That, says the Satmar Rav, was the shkoyach of Moshe Rabbeinu. Not simply a breaking of the luchos, but a breaking of the luchos and having no idea what was going to happen to you as a result of this course of action, but a willingness to absorb whatever punishment was going to come your way simply because you're willing to do anything and everything you can to ameliorate the severity, to downplay the severity of the sinful behavior of your beloved people. That's the shkoyach that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Moshe Rabbeinu. Hosif Yomecha Midaito, Moshe Rabbeinu added on one additional day to the preparations for Shavuos. So the Gemara says, "My darish, what did he darshan? They said v'kidash ma yom machar." Now, boss is interesting. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he talks to Moshe, gives Moshe Rabbeinu 2 days sanctify yourself today and tomorrow. So it seems that Hashem just wanted the people to have 2 days of preparation. So but Moshe Rabbeinu said like this, Ma mochar, hayom ki mochar. Tomorrow, today has to be like tomorrow. Ma mochar leilo imo, just like tomorrow is a full day, the night and the day. Af hayom leilo imo, so too today has to have the night included with it. V'layla da idna nafakle. The problem is Hashem was talking to Moshe by day. Shma mina trei yomi lebar mea idna. So Moshe Rabbeinu understood that Hashem was saying when Hashem said 2 days, he meant 2 complete days in addition to the one in which we are currently in. So it turns out that Hashem just wanted 3 days of preparation. Moshe Rabbeinu ended up adding on a 3rd day. The Gemara says, how do we know that Hashem agreed with Moshe Rabbeinu? Ultimately, because the Shechina doesn't come until when? The 3rd day. The 3rd day. In other words, had Moshe Rabbeinu been wrong, the Shechina would have showed up on Friday instead of Shabbos. But Kabbalah Torah ultimately is on Shabbos. And therefore, Allah Kalamaisa, that shows that Hashem agreed with Moshe. Rabbi said, by the way, just to point out, why did we get into this? Right? First of all, Rashi has an interesting idea. Rashi says over at Shabsa, Msecha Shabsa, Rabbi Akiva, Gamrina Law, Da'avud Prisha Ba'arba B'Shabsa, O Pirshu Chamishi V'Shishi Shleimim, O B'Shabsa Shaya. Rabbi said, in the year in which they received the Torah was received on Shabbos. So the days of separation were Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. It was on Wednesday during the day that Hashem appeared to Moshe Rabbeinu, and then it was then that Moshe Rabbeinu said and made the calculation, I think we need 2 complete days. So therefore he added on Wednesday, and then there was Thursday and Friday as well. Kabbalah Torah is on a Shabbos. I will say, just so we don't get lost in this, why did we bring this up? Well, I will say, brother, I'll just say, okay, one more piece. I will say the Joseph Moshe Midaito, again, a Satmar Rav, asks, he says, I don't understand, why would Moshe Rabbeinu add on 1 day? After all, isn't there a concept of Zrizin Makdimin Lemitzvos? Right? They will say, where's the Zrizos? You're adding on 1 day, aren't you excited to go ahead and get the Torah? Yet you're delaying it 1 more day. What about Zrizin Makdimin Lemitzvos? Zrizos. So I will say, Sadmar says something amazing. You see from here that hachana for a mitzvah is also a mitzvah. Right? So I will say, we often think that hachana, preparing yourself for spiritual service, is just like a nice thing. No. Hachana, preparing yourself to properly perform a mitzvah, that's a mitzvah also. So there was Zrizos, says the Satmar Rav. It was Zrizos for hachana. And hachana is just like Mr. Rabbi say, this is something that so often is hard, it's lost on us a little bit. Because Rabbi said the notion of hachana, of preparing myself before I go ahead and I do something, the l'shem yichud, right? Whatever the mitzvah is, but putting myself in the right frame of mind before I perform the mitzvah so as to maximize the experience. That in and of itself is not just simply a preparatory act, but that in and of itself is a mitzvah. Okay, beautiful. Both say. So again, why do we get into all of this? Remember, we're in the sugya perivia. That's where we are. Machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says 2 boys. Beis Hillel, boy and a girl. So the Gemara says, where does Beis Shammai get his position from? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu has 2 boys, then he separates from his wife. Beis Hillel does not accept that as a source for the halacha. Why not? Because Beis Hillel says Moshe Rabbeinu did that on his own. He did that on his own. What Beis Hillel says is Moshe Rabbeinu chose to separate from his wife of his own volition. Which kind of leaves open, according to Beis Hillel, did Moshe Rabbeinu fulfill the mitzvah per verivia or not? Right? But it could very well be what Beis Hillel is saying is, look, Moshe Rabbeinu kind of operated on a different level. But Moshe Rabbeinu decided to separate from his wife of his own volition. It happens to be that ex post facto, Hashem agreed with him. But Lamaisi, you can't bring a raya, says Beis Hillel, from Moshe Rabbeinu. Good. So let's get back to per verivia. Says the Gemara, Tanya, so now we're going to have a couple of versions of Machlokes and Shem Beis Hillel. So Tanya, Rabbi Nassan, Rabbi Shammai Omrim, Shnei Zechar, Mushtei Nekevas. Listen to this. Rabbi Nassan says, Beis Shammai says the mitzvah per verivia is 2 boys and 2 girls. 4 kids. 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. O Beis Hillel Omrim, Zacha Unekeva. So both say now, the divide has become much more pronounced. Right? So according to Beis Shammai, now we've got 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. Beis Hillel, 1 boy, 1 girl. Amar Avuna, my time is Rabbi Nassan, I'll leave it to Beis Shammai. I will say, this is Rabbi Nassan's version of Beis Shammai. Where does Rabbi Nosson get that? According to Beis Shammai, you need 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. So listen to this. Dichsev Vatosef laledes es achiv es hevel. Right? So listen to this. By Chava, the pasuk we dash in the pasuk. Vatosef, right? Chava gave birth es achiv es hevel. Now, Rashi points out over here. Buzzer points out over here that, well, let's read it. So, as Hevel v'achoso, Kain v'achoso. So I will say, the way the pasuk goes ahead and discusses when Chava gives birth, she gives birth to Es Kain v'es Hevel. Es is a riboy. Es comes to include something else, which teaches us that what? Both Kain and Hevel were born with twin sisters. Right? So essentially, in the first human act of procreation, Adam and Chava have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. And what happens? Uksiv ki shasli elokim zera acher tachas hevel ki hargo Kain. Furthermore, after Kain kills Hevel, Chava has another son, Sheis, and she says that Hashem has replaced for me the son that was killed by Kain. The idea that Chava is saying replace, in other words, I have now fulfilled the mitzvah perivya because Hashem has given me, quote unquote, a replacement son. But according to Rabbi Nosson, you see from here that according to Beis Shammai, the mitzvah perivya is 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, really mirroring, right, the first human act of procreation of Adam and Chava. Incredible. So the Gemara says, "V'Rabbanan adu Yehud ahuda kamodis." Chava was not saying from a halachic perspective, but rather Chava was just simply thanking Hashem for Sheis. Tanya Idach Rabos, another brayso, Rabbi Nosson, Rabbi Shammai Zachar in the Keva. Rabbi Shammai hold that the mitzvah perivya is a boy and a girl. Ubeis Hillel omrim o zachar o nekeva, a boy or a girl. So we'll say these are all just different versions of the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. So we'll say in this version you have Beis Shammai saying you need a boy and a girl, and Beis Hillel saying what? 1 child, a boy or a girl. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, my time with Rabbi Nosson al libid Beis Hillel. What's Rabbi Nosson's logic? Shne'emar lo sobar al sheves yitzara. Because we'll say, why would Beis Hillel say you only need 1 child? Because we'll say, this is actually very interesting. There's another pasuk. The pasuk that the Gemara is quoting over here to the pasuk, Lo sobar l'sheves yitzara, pasuk from Yeshaya, which literally means Hashem has not created the world to remain desolate. And I was saying, we're going to see that there are 2 mitzvos. There's a mitzvah of Pirivarivya and a mitzvah of Sheves. The mitzvah of Pirivarivya is one of the 613 mitzvos that has to be performed in some particular way. In other words, it has to result in either 2 boys, a boy and a girl, or all these different variations. The mitzvah of Sheves is the general mitzvah of procreation. To have children, the gender, the number is not really relevant. It's just a mitzvah to populate the world. Right now, the Gemara is kind of merging them. We're going to see that, in fact, there are 2 distinct halachic obligations. So I will say, we're going to see, and by the way, that's what we're going to see, even once a person fulfills the mitzvah perivya, procreation, there is still an additional mitzvah of sheves, of just populating the world. Again, we'll discuss halach parameters of this. So therefore, again, Beis Hillel will say, now, according to this version, Beis Hillel is really looking at both of these mitzvahs kind of as one. The mitzvah of Perivya and the mitzvah of Sheves are one thing. What's the idea? Populate the world. So as soon as you've had 1 child, boy or girl, what have you done? You've populated the world. So the Gemara says, Itmar, will say, fine. So we'll say, therefore, 4 different versions of Machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. I will say, we are going to see the authoritative version is going to be the version in our Mishnah, where you have Beis Hillel saying you have to have a boy and a girl, Beis Shammai saying you have to have 2 boys. That's going to be the authoritative version of the Machlokes. How we paskin, we'll see. I will say another fascinating case. Itmar, both say, listen to this case. Let's call him Reuven. Right? So Reuven converts, but before he converted, Reuven had kids. He was married, he had kids, and now he converted. So we'll say, so now what's the shaila? So do we count the kids that he had when he was a non-Jew as a fulfillment of his mitzvah perivya? So we'll say, in other words, how do we look at his family that he became Jewish? Rabbi Yochanan says, Kiyim perivya, he's fulfilled the mitzvah perivya. The kids that he had ultimately count, even though, again, now we'll say, now according to the Gemara, it sounds like What, right? Reuven converted. What about his kids? It sounds like they didn't. Well, we'll see an interesting halacha in Shulchan Aruch in just a little bit. So Rabbi Yochanan says, Kim per Verivya. Reish Lakish Amar Lo Kim per Verivya. Reish Lakish says, no, you didn't fulfill per Verivya. Your kids aren't Jewish. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kim per Verivya, the Havulei. Rabbi Yochanan says about something very interesting. What's the Mr. Per Verivya? So I will say, this goes back to what we said before, that there is a school of thought that links the mitzvah Peru or Revu with Sheves. If you look at it that way, then the mitzvah is what? Procreation and populating the world. If Reuven was a guy, and when he was a guy, he had children, now he converts. Did he populate the world? Yes. So if Rabbi Yochanan will say, he's good. Reish Lakish Amar Lo Ki Per Verivya. Why? Gershinis Gayer Kekatan Shenola Dami. Wow. Reish Lakish says, 1 second, you're forgetting a very important point. When you go ahead and you convert, that's like a rebirth, which means what? All previous relationships are at least halachically severed. You're not halachically related to anyone when you convert. As such, he has no halachic connection to those children, and therefore, again, he has not fulfilled the mitzvah of Peru or Revu. The Azlo Tamayo says the Gemara, they go according to their respective reasoning. The Itmar, we'll say 4 lines down in the wide lines. If a person had children when he was not Jewish, then he converted. Rabbi Yochanan says, it's a different. Rabbi Yochanan Omer, Ein lo b'char l'nachala. So we'll say, let's go with this case. There's a guy, Joe, right? Joe has 2 sons, right? Joe Jr. and Joe II, right? So he has 2 sons when he's a non-Jew. So we'll say now Joe decides to convert. Let's say Joe now converts and he has another son. So we'll say, what's the shaila? Is that son that he had now when he's Jewish, is he called the halachic bachar? Now we'll say, now why does that matter? Because the bachar gets pishnayim, right? The bachar gets a double portion. So Rabbi Yochanan says, Ein lo bachar l'nachala. We'll say, look at Rashi, Ein lo bachar l'nachala. Bet bachar sheyula lo mishkaya eino nota pishnayim. Rabbi Yochanan says, no. The son that Joe the convert now has when he's Jewish is not called the bachar. Then I will say, now this is Rabbi Yochanan l'shita, because Rabbi Yochanan holds that what? Children that you have when you're not Jewish count as what? As children for Per Verivya. Now I will say, now obviously, a child that Joe had when he was not Jewish is not going to get a double portion, right? Why not? Because double portion is a din in Jewish offspring. But the offspring that Joe had when he was not Jewish count as his offspring, and therefore the son that he has when he becomes Jewish is not a halachic bachar. Reish Lakish says, no, that's not true. Yesh lo bachar l'nachala. Gershin is kai kadash no lo dami. Reish Lakish says, not true. The child that Joe the convert has when he converts, that's a halachic bachar. Why? Because when a person converts, ultimately, again, what's the halacha? It's like a child that's been reborn. A child that's been reborn, and therefore, again, he has no halachic relationship to any of the children he had before. So the Gemara will say, so first of all, they're saying the same things. Why do you have to restate the same case twice? I'll tell you why. Had you just said the first case of Per Verivya, I would have said Bahi Kama Rabbi Yochanan Bishum Demei Kardai B'nei Per Verivya Ninu. So I would have said Rabbi Yochanan holds in the case of Peru Revu that children you have when you're a guy count towards the Per Verivya. Why? Because as we're going to see, non-Jews also have a mitzvah of procreation. Now, not the mitzvah of Per Verivya, but the mitzvah of Sheves, of populating the world. So that's Rabbi Yochanan as we said the Shida. But also when it comes to laws of inheritance, non-Jews don't have the same laws of inheritance that Jews do. I might have thought that Rabbi Yochanan agrees with Reish Lakish. V'yitmar b'ha kam Reish Lakish aval b'ahi imod leil Rabbi Yochanan. Therefore tzricha. Rabbi will say, in other words, you could not have necessarily gleaned one case from the other. Therefore, halacha l'maisa, you need both. Incredible. So we'll say, Eis Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan is kasher to Reish Lakish. But Isai, so we'll say, so now again, remember. So according to Reish Lakish's whole shita is that halacha l'maisa, there is no connection between a convert and his Gentile family once he converts. No halachic connection. So we'll say, now watch this. Asks Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, Ba'esahi, Shalach Biradach Beladon Ben Beladon Melech Bavel. So we'll say, here you see a case where what? Where halacha l'maisa, the Navi is recording relationships between non-Jews and their offspring. So you see from here that there is a connection between non-Jews and their offspring. Amrle beyosin ovdei gochavim islu chayis. Niskaru islu chayis. So listen to this. Reish Lakish is not disagreeing that when a person is a Gentile, there's absolutely a connection between father and children. Where does Reish Lakish say that the relationship is severed? When Rabbi say when? Upon conversion. Upon conversion, that's what happens. Upon conversion, that's when the relationship itself is severed. To which the Gemara says, Amarav, Hakam Oldim be'eved she'en lo chayis. Everyone agrees, however, with the slave, right, that in Eved, there is no relationship of paternity, right, between a father and his sons by Avodim. The Gemara says, Dechsev shvula chan poi machamar, imadoma lachamar. Because interestingly enough, the Gemara compares Avodim to a chamar, to donkeys. Just like a donkey, right, ultimately, again, has no, we'll call it paternity or familiar relationship. So to an Eved, so the Gemara says, Meisvei, uletziva chamisha sarbanim ve'esrim avodim, tziva, who was an Eved, who was a servant, right, an Eved Kenani of Shaul. Yet the pasuk says that he had 15 sons and 20 servants. Amar Vachabar Yaakov, Kipar ben Bakar. When it says like his sons, it means like a par ben bakar. Right? Rabbi say just like the Torah speaks about a karbanos, a par ben bakar. So to avodim have that type of relationships, but it is not a halachically, it is not a meaningful halachically genealogical relationship. Ihachi hachenami. Why don't I say the same thing by Evel Brodach like we spoke about before? Shani hasam diachsinu b'shemayu ub'shma da'avuan. Shabbos say, what you have over here according to the Gemara is something really interesting. Non-Jews, right? Non-Jews absolutely have intact genealogical relationships. Who doesn't have intact genealogical relationships? Avodim. Then I will say, that has to do with the general concept that Avodim are also known to be what? Incredibly immoral. So because there's a fundamental lack of morality, there's also considered to be a lack of familial lines. So non-Jews have intact genealogy. Avodim do not. According to Reish Lakish, where does the problem occur? Not problem, but where does the interesting issue occur? Upon conversion. Because according to Reish Lakish, a person who converts is considered to be a tabula rasa, blank slate, and the previous familial relationships he had are severed. Reish Lakish says that's true even in a period of Arivia situation. So if you have a person, right, Joe, who had 2 boys and 2 girls. So we'll say, which means what? He's good according to everyone. Now he converts. According to Reish Lakish, he now has a brand new, renewed obligation of Pirya Verivya. Incredible. So it says, furthermore, again, say it's different by, he brings another example by Goyim, that when the Torah, when the Navi goes out of its way to tell you their family tree, both their fathers and their grandfathers, Vayishalachim hamelach Asa el ben Ader ben Tarimon ben Chizayon melech Aram hayoshe beDamasek. Lay more. Fine. So we'll say Idmar. Let's go back to Sefer. We'll say what we have over here is non-Jews have intact genealogy. Avodim do not have intact genealogy. The shaila is when a person converts, does their relationship to their children follow them in a halachic sense? Rabbi Yochanan says yes, and therefore again they fulfill them in Sefer Rivya. Reish Lakish says no. Again, we'll see the halacha l'maaseh tomorrow. Itmar hayulu banu meisu. They both say a tragic case. What happens if a person had children? Whatever it is, and then the child dies, Rahman al-Islam. I will say, what's the status of their mitzvah of Pir Verivya? Rav Huna Merkim Pir Verivya. Rav Huna says, you fulfilled your mitzvah. Your mitzvah is to bring children into this world. What happens after that does not impact your mitzvah. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Lo Kiyem. Rabbi Yochanan says, no. The mitzvah, according to Shabbos, is actually fascinating. The mitzvah is to have children, and what? To see those children, what? Have children. How we're going to see this idea. And therefore, if Chas v'Shalom a child dies, the parent has not fulfilled the mitzvah peru revu. Rav Huna Amar Kiyeh Mishum de Rav Asi. Rav Huna say fulfilled the mitzvah because Rav Asi, Rav Asi, and we'll say this is incredible. Ein ben David ba at shiyichlu kol neshama shavuguf. Rabbi say this is absolutely wild. Rabbi say take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Mishum de Rav Asi. Kilomar taima de peraverivya Mishum de Rav Asi. Rabbi say get ready for this. Why is there a mitzvah of peraverivya? Right, so we'll say, what is the purpose of procreation? What is the purpose of that mitzvah? So we'll say, so listen to this. So we often assume the purpose of the mitzvah is to populate the world. There's a more esoteric piece as well. Look at Rashi. V'hai kevan did not lo al yado min neshama sheba also otzer sheshmo guf hari kain. Let's listen to this. There is a chamber in Shemaim called the Guf. That's the name of the chamber in Shemaim. In the Guf, in that chamber, are housed all of the neshamas, all of the souls. Mashiach only comes when that chamber is emptied out from all of the souls. The purpose of Periya Verivya is to empty out the chamber, because when a person has a child, they draw out one of the souls from that chamber, and as soon as that chamber is emptied out, Mashiach comes. Which I will say you should understand on a deeper level. One of the reasons why there is so much simcha that surrounds the birth of a Jewish child is why? Because ultimately, again, the Mashiach is one step closer. Literally, again, there's one less soul in that chamber, which brings Mashiach just a little bit closer. That's the simcha. So therefore, let's listen to this. Sirfa Uvuna says, if a person had children and Nebuch, the child, died, you still fulfill the mitzvah of Periya. Because what's the point of Periya, at least according to Rav Huna? It's to empty out the guf, to empty out the chamber. You've accomplished that. The Gemara says, Shenemar kiruach milafaniatov, Rabbi Yochanan lo came Periya, lesheves yitzara ba'ina v'haleka. Shabbos say, Rabbi Yochanan on the other hand takes a more practical level. What's the point of Peruvu? To populate the world. The truth is, real population of the world occurs when you have a child, and then we're going to see when that child has a child as well. But if the child chas v'shalom dies before that child ever had a chance to procreate, then lamaisa, I haven't fulfilled my mitzvah. So meisvei, let's analyze Amud Beis meisvei b'nei banim harein kibanim. Boss, listen to this, incredible. Grandchildren are like children. And this is a beautiful sentiment, right? In fact, the real thing is, grandchildren are even better than children, right? Because Lamaisa, they go home, right? You know, at the end of the day, right, you can have them for all of the fun, and then Baruch Hashem, when they get cranky, it's someone else's problems. And I would say, so ultimately, again, but on a halachic sense, the Gemara says, B'nei banim harehem kibanim. What does this mean? Look at Rashi. Look at Rashi. The way the Gemara understand this, and this is incredible, is B'nei banim like banim, meaning that what? That if a person, let's say, had children, let's watch this for just a moment. Let's say Reuven had two sons. Yaakov had two sons, Reuven and Shimon, right? Reuven passed away. But before Reuven passed away, Reuven himself had a son. So Rabbi will say, what's the halacha? Even though Reuven passed away, Yaakov still fulfills his mitzvah perverivia. How? Through Reuven's son. B'nei banim harim kibanim. So I will say, if a person lost a child, but before their child passed away, chas v'shalom, the child had a child, that child could help fulfill the grandparents' obligation of perverivia. To which the Gemara says, Kitanya hi lahashlim. No. In a halachic sense, I will say what that means is, a grandchild helps to fill in the gaps for the grandparent. What does that mean? Look at Rashi. Kitanya lahashlim, kigon shelo haylo l'zakin ela ben echad, v'nasa ben isha, v'holid bas, patra zakin. I will say, where do grandchildren help? Watch this. Let's say Yaakov only had one son. Say, did not fulfill the mitzvah of perverivia. Right? He had one son, Reuven. What happens now? Reuven gets married, and Reuven himself has a daughter, Rochel. So I will say, B'nei banim harim kibanim, grandchildren are like children. So now Yaakov, the grandfather, has fulfilled the mitzvah perverivia. How? Through his granddaughter. He has one son and now a granddaughter. He fulfills his mitzvah of perverivia through grandchildren. So meisvei yorei kasha b'nei banim harim kibanim, right? Grandchildren like children. Meis echad mehem. I will say, what does it mean ultimately, again, that grandchildren are like children? If chas v'shalom, again, meis echad mehem, one of his children passed away, or one of his children was found to be sterile, Rabbi will talk about this, that part of the mitzvah perverivia is not just having children, but it's having children who themselves will have children. In any of these cases, a child passed away was found to be sterile, lo kiyim periya verivia. Ultimately, a person has not fulfilled the mitzvah perverivia, to which the Gemara says, tiyufta dirafuna tiyufta. This effectively refutes Rav Huna's position. So I will say, so remember again, Rav Huna holds that if a person had children, and then let's say a child passed away, the fact that you had the child, even though the child passed away, you fulfilled the mitzvah perverivia. I will say, the Gemara says, Rav Huna, you're wrong. And Rabbi said, this is how the Shulchan Aruch paskins, that if a person had children, but one of the child, say a person had a son and a daughter like Beis Hillel, and then the son passed away before he was able to have children, himself, ultimately, again, the parent has not fulfilled the mitzvah peri v'rivya, which Rabbi says shows you something amazing. What you begin to see is as we go through this sugya, the mitzvah peri v'rivya is expanding, right? How did it start? Stage one is what? Having children. Okay, 2 boys, a boy and a girl, that remains to be seen. Now, we've just expanded it in a dramatic way. That's the beginning of the mitzvah. Then what has to happen, Rabbi said? Then what has to happen? My children have to get married. And then what has to happen after that? My children have to have children. So it turns out, Rabbi say, that the mitzvah peri v'rivya is not simply having children. It's having children, having your children get married, and when your children have children, that's then the mitzvah peri v'rivya. Now, how many kids, how many grandchildren do you have to fulfill mitzvah peri v'rivya? We'll see. But both say, but it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing because we woke up this morning, right? And the world, right? We woke up this morning, you say it's Sunday, everything is great, and you thought somebody would have stopped you on the way to shul. Tell me, what's the mitzvah peri v'rivya? You would have said what? You would have said what? Having children, right? Whatever. Now, both say, again, 2 hours after, or however long you have to, we woke up in the morning, my whole life changed. My entire world changed. Suddenly, again, peri v'rivya is having children, and then it's my children having children. Only then have I fulfilled the mitzvah peri v'rivya. And I will say, the exact halachic parameters of that remain to be seen. Let's go weiter. Sabri, b'nei banahari kibanis. We're going to talk about the grandchildren a little bit more. Sabra by Meimar, bra lebra, ubarta lebarta. Sabai thought when we say that grandchildren are like children, so originally Abai thought what this means is what? A son who has a son, a daughter has a daughter. The kol shekein bra lebarta, or if a daughter has a son. Avabarta lebra lo, but a daughter to a son would not work. Amrli Rava, l'sheves b'jisara ba'inan v'ha'ika. Rava says no, but when it comes to grandchildren, ultimately the respective genders of the grandchildren doesn't make any difference. Lemaisa, again, grandchildren have the ability to, if let's say the child passed away, grandchildren have the ability to plug the peri v'rivya hole. I apologize for speaking so technically, but you understand, to plug the peri v'rivya hole, no matter what gender those grandchildren may be. The Gemara says, Vaha'ika dekuli alma. So the Gemara says, Mias trei mechad lo. So I will say, here's what's interesting. The Gemara says, Vaha'ika kuli alma. The Gemara says, Ba'imela abai bein l'rava. Everybody agrees with the following. Trei mechad lo. We'll say, look at Rashi. Va'asheni meis below banim lo ki mazakim peri v'rivya. So I will say, here's what's interesting. Everyone agrees as follows. When could grandchildren plug the peri v'rivya hole with chas from the death of a child? That's when it's the child who passed away leaves behind children. But let's say Yaakov has 2 sons, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven passes away with no children. Shimon has 2 kids. We don't say that Shimon's 2 kids could plug the hole for Reuven's absence. The only time that grandchildren could plug the peri v'rivya hole left by the death of a child is when it's that child who passed away who left behind children. But children from another sibling will not work to plug the peri v'rivya hole. Okay, so the Gemara says, is that true? The Rabbanan said to Rav Sheshes, Nosiv is a sava olibani. So I'll say, so apparently, so the rabbis used to say to Rav Sheshes, get married and have children. Well, say apparently Rav Sheshes was married. He lost a child, and his fellow colleagues were urging him to get remarried. And Rav Sheshes says, no, I don't have to get remarried. B'nei barti banai. The sons of my daughter are like my sons. So apparently he lost the son, and son didn't leave behind children, but he had a daughter, and his daughter had sons. So Rav Sheshes says, I don't have to get remarried because my daughter has sons, and my daughter's sons allow me to fulfill the mitzvah peri v'rivya. So I'll say, what do you see from there? It sounds like from there, the halach is that what? That again, even if one child passed away without sons or without children, the remaining child's children could count to plug the peri v'rivya hole left by the deceased child, to which the Gemara says, Hasam dachuye kamatchiluhu. But I'll say the truth is there, Rav Sheshes wasn't putting forward a halachic argument. He was simply kind of pushing them away. Why? To Rav Sheshes i'akim repirke, to Rav Huna. So also listen to this. Rav Sheshes was sterile. That's what happened to Rav Sheshes couldn't have children. And I will say, now why couldn't he have children? he became sterile as a result of the shear of Rav Huna. And I will say now, what happened there? Look at Rashi. I will say Rav Huna used to give a very long shear, used to give very long drashas. And I will say what happened is Rav Sheshes was sitting in shear, never wanted to get up in the middle of shear. Right? So what happened? He would hold urine. He would go ahead and refrain from going to the bathroom for a long time. And as a result, the Gemara says, and they became sterile. Now, listen, here's what's interesting. It doesn't seem that urine holding is a reason for male sterility, at least presently. It's possible, nishtanu ateva, right? It's possible that lemaisa, again, just physiologically, we know that there are certain things physiologically that were just different. It could also be based on the medical knowledge they had. They associated urine holding with male sterility. Either way, Rav Sheshes was sterile. So he was just kind of pushing. I will say, by the way, also, this Rashi, this is I'm Mikabel them also. The drush is going to be much shorter from now on, right? So everything is much shorter. I will say, but the idea over here also is, first of all, I'll say, just to understand like the Kavanah Torah, Rav Sheshes, how badly he must have had to go to the bathroom, but yet he did not want to interrupt the shear. He did not want to go ahead. It's on a number of, first of all, out of kavod for Rav Sheshes, right? Out of a disruptive nature of moving around, during shear. And I will say also Torah. He didn't want to lose out on the Torah. So take care of your needs before, take care of your needs after. Obviously, this is not good. This is not good. The Gemara doesn't, right? This is not the expectation that the Gemara has. Remember, unfortunately, it had a terrible consequence for Rav Sheshes. But Lamaisa. So therefore, don't bring a raya from Rav Sheshes' statement. Rav Sheshes was sterile. That's who's saying, I have no obligation to get remarried because I can't have children. So the Gemara says, so let's just end with this. From where do we know this concept that the Rabbanon say b'nei banim harein kebanim? This idea that grandchildren are like children. We'll say, where do we learn it from? Maybe it's from Lavan. Then after Lavan runs after Yaakov and he catches up with Yaakov and he says, Yaakov, why did you run away? The children are my children, right? The sons are my sons. The girls are my right. The girls are my daughters. So we'll say, so maybe it's from Lavan. Lavan said to Yaakov, your grandchildren are like my children. Lavan also said the sheep is my sheep. So we'll say, so how literally do we take this statement? Ella, the Gemara says, Ella de kanos minai. Hachanami de kanos minai. Ella mehacha. Ve'achar ba chetzron al bas machir. Avi gilad. Vatela lo es-sugov. So let's listen to this. We learn it out from a very interesting source. The Gemara quotes from the pasuk in Divrei Hayomim. And the Gemara says also with this will end. Chetzron married the daughter of Machir, the father of Gilad, and they had a son, Sigov, Uksiv, Minei Machir Yardim Mechokikim. From the descendants of Machir, lawgivers came. Now, I will say now, Machir was from the tribe of Menashe. And yet, ultimately, Mechokikim are from Shevet Yehuda. Uksiv Yehuda Mechokike. So we'll say, so what do you see from here? It must have been that ultimately, again, he married into the tribe of Yehuda. He married into the tribe of Yehuda, and therefore halacha l'maisa, or his wife was from the tribe of Yehuda. But you see that grandchildren are considered to be like children. So we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up at Yahrzeit Hashem with the sugya of grandchildren more tomorrow. The rest of the sugya is a pair of Rivya. Shkach. We'll say incredible dapim ahead of us in the days to come. Shkoyach.